Hi, Heather here with Underwater Panther, and I am continuing my Gemini or ENTJ video series based on my Astro-Psychological book, my ebook. It's online, it is published. Check out the description below if you're interested in this information and want to contribute to my cause and what I am doing here. So, today, I wanted to talk about the home right ruler or hero cognitive function within the Gemini or ENTJ. Start with astrology and then get into the psychology. So, astrologically, it's considered the home or the ruler of a Gemini or ENTJ, and then psychologically, it's considered the hero cognitive function, and that would be Mercury is the ruling sign of Gemini, and extroverted thinking is the hero cognitive function within the ENTJ. So I'm combining the astrology and the psychology. So what is home? I'm going to start with astrology first. The home is what is the right thing to do in a Gemini's mind, or the natural go-to for the Gemini. We are now diving into what feels like home, or the right thing to do for Gemini through the lens of Mercury. So home, or the right side, means this is what they feel like the right thing to do is in most situations, and that's what they are comfortable with going to within their ego. So this is like they feel comfortable, this is what my go-to is, which is Mercury. The feeling of a planet within its own sign is one of ease. It feels comfortable to be home. It feels relaxed and unconcerned in its expression. It does not feel challenged at the same time, often reflecting attributes that are thought to be conventional in that realm of life. So when we look at a Gemini, we're like, oh yeah, they're just communicating everyone's business again. I'm just kidding. But, we all know, are very well aware of Gemini, how social they are. So Mercury is the communication, the thinking and analyzing, and the socializing. So that is the home feeling, and what we all see Geminis doing, that's natural to them. Everyone knows it, and they know it also, unless they're an autopilot with their ego. So now we're going to go into the psychology. The hero cognitive function is extroverted thinking, and the quotation is, "I'm heroic with what others think." The hero is a optimistic function, so there's lots of energy there. We can take our hero to the extreme, so much so it can run our lives from autopilot and be almost unconscious to us. The hero function is the primary function. It is linked to the inferior function. So if someone pisses off the hero, it will ignite the inferior. They're linked together. So the cognitive attitude of the hero function within the ego is bravery, conviction, courage, determination, helpful, honesty, protective, self-sacrificing, selflessness, strength, competent, and confident. So when someone is in these energies, they are most likely using their hero function in a healthy way. So heroic inflation, using this function far too much, can be sensory overload. It can be a real thing. Heightened, it's like a heightened state. The hero struggles, the hero cognitive function struggles. Just because we're naturally good at our hero function, this does not mean that we are actually good at it all the time. The hero goes on autopilot, and we can really zone out with what's going on here. Heroic inflation happens when one thinks their hero function, so extroverted thinking in the Gemini's case, can fix everything. It can solve every problem. So TE hero cannot be used in every situation, and is especially no good at introspection, self-reflection, and being forceful in situations that call for patience. So they can be forceful in situation that calls for patience, or get emotional angry, stuff like that. And it doesn't actually like to play with ideas. So extroverted thinking doesn't like to play with ideas like introverted thinking does. So they can be kind of stern with their communication, especially when there's a problem. You will most likely see them get pretty frustrated. I mean, that goes for anyone, but the hero cognitive function within the Gemini, the hero function is the first gateway of the mind in the four sides. So the four sides are the ego, the subconscious, the unconscious, and the superego. But it doesn't start to develop until after the id, which is in infancy stage. And the infancy stage, when we only know what we want and our basic needs. As we interact more in the world, in beta waves, do we develop the understanding that others have needs and desires and that we cannot fully be selfish. We gather perceptions and become more capable of making decisions. It is the ego's job to meet the needs of the id while taking into account the reality of the situation. So the hero is the strongest, most dominant, and well-developed function. It is our flow state. Consciousness itself is order, and we are conscious because of the ego. The ego creates order. Consciousness, the ego, is always challenging the chaos. We develop this function roughly from the ages of 1 to 13. This function will be the most obvious in children and will be the one they develop the most control of in their lives. You will see glimpses of their auxiliary or parent function as well towards when they are 13 or teenagers, but it will still be underdeveloped and not quite balanced. So the ego is a part of the collective unconscious, so they say. Extroverted and introverted intuition is considered the Akashic records. And we don't need to destroy the ego, we need to recognize and understand it. Human nature doesn't change, and it costs less energy to be in the ego due to being conscious and not having to dig deeper into the deeper layers of the mind. It takes more energy to try to break bad habits, which are driven into our subconscious, thus making our actions harder to recognize and reach. We cruise with ease in the ego function more so than any other part of our mind. So the hero is linked to the inferior function. It is on a cognitive axis. The hero feels obligated. What happens to the hero happens to the inferior function. We need to develop the parent function within the ego for a sense of responsibility, and the inferior function if we want to have a higher level of consciousness. We have to get our hero together in order to make our lives flow smoother, but the hero has inherent pride. The hero is prone to getting stuck in extremes. It can take over the ego to the point that we become unconscious, practically.